Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The screen door slammed against the frame behind me as I paced the wooden boards of our porch barefoot, fists clenched tight, heart hammering like I'd sprinted a mile. The stillness of the Alabama night was shattered by the clunk of heels on gravel and a burst of laughter that didn't belong to someone coming home to their future husband. Madison, I barked as she wobbled up the steps, the scent of cheap wine and unfamiliar perfume hitting me like a wall. She blinked at me, hair windswept, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. Relax, she slurred, pulling off one shoe. It's not like I did anything wrong. 3 a.m, I growled. You said you were having a quick dinner with Cassidy. That was 8 hours ago. She waved a hand, stumbling past me into the living room. Chill, Carter. We're not married yet. I can do whatever I want. I followed her in, shutting the door hard enough to rattle the window panes. That's the problem, isn't it? I said, voice tight. You act like nothing matters yet. Like the vows don't start counting until they're printed on a program. She flopped onto the couch, kicking her feet up and grabbing the remote like we weren't in the middle of a boiling storm. I stepped closer. You've been out drinking with God knows who, wearing a dress I've never seen and smelling like somebody else's cologne. And you want me to just let it slide? She turned to me slowly, eyes glazed but cold. Carter, stop acting like you're my father. You don't own me. And if you're going to throw a fit every time I enjoy myself, maybe marriage isn't for you. I stood there, rooted, the floor beneath me vanishing inch by inch. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her words hit me like a quiet explosion. No scream, no shatter. Just pressure. A growing crack I couldn't ignore anymore. You really don't see it, do you? I said finally. She gave a slow blink. See what? I shook my head. This isn't just disrespectful, Madison. This is reckless. You think love is a switch that flips on with a white dress and a license. But I've been in it every day. Alone, apparently. She scoffed, standing up. You're being dramatic. No, I said, stepping back, my voice softening. I'm being honest. She didn't reply, just walked down the hallway, still laughing under her breath, as if none of it mattered. And I stood there, staring at the space where she used to stand, realizing something I never thought I'd have to admit. This woman I was supposed to marry didn't respect me. Not one bit. I wish I could say that was the moment everything changed. But it wasn't. It was just the first crack in something I'd spent too long pretending was solid. The next night, I was staring down a chipped coffee mug at Wheeler's Diner, the same booth I'd sat in since high school. The clatter of silverware and murmured conversations filled the room like background noise from a life I was trying to stay tethered to. Jake sat across from me, elbows on the table, stirring his third coffee like he had all night. So, he said, not looking up. She came home at 3 a.m, laughing. Yeah, and said, we're not married yet. I can do whatever I want. I nodded once. Jake gave a quiet chuckle. That's wild, man. I didn't laugh. He looked up then. Jake's the kind of guy who always spoke like he was leaning into the truth, whether you wanted to hear it or not. We'd been best friends since Little League. I knew what was coming. That ain't love, he said simply. That's disrespect. I know, I muttered. No, I don't think you do. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. Because if you did, you wouldn't still be trying to explain it to yourself like it's just some phase. I gripped my mug tighter. She was just out with her friends. Jake raised an eyebrow. Smelling like wine and strangers? I sighed, staring out the window at the dark Alabama street. It'll be fine after we're married. Jake didn't respond at first, just took a slow sip of coffee. Then he set his mug down, hard enough to make the salt shaker rattle. That's the dumbest thing you've ever said. I snapped my head toward him. Excuse me. He didn't flinch. You think a wedding changes people? Carter, if she's out here treating you like a speed bump now, what makes you think vows are going to change her brakes? My jaw clenched. People change. No, Jake said flatly. They reveal. And Madison? She's showing you exactly who she is. I slammed my cup down so hard coffee sloshed onto the table. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't seen it? I stopped, swallowing hard. I've just built so much around this. Around her. Jake leaned forward. Then maybe it's time to start tearing it down before it takes you with it. I rubbed my temples, silent. The weight behind his words was heavier than I wanted to admit. After a long moment, I said, I already paid the venue deposit. My name's on every contract. Her family's flying in from Texas. You want me to blow all that up because she stayed out late? I want you to stop pretending you're marrying someone who respects you, Jake replied. That one hit deep, deeper than I expected. He sat back again, voice quieter now. But I get it. You're loyal. Always have been. And maybe part of you still believes she'll come around. I looked at him, eyes stinging. I thought maybe she was just scared. Maybe she's testing the edges before locking into something real. Jake shook his head, not unkindly. A test's one thing. A pattern? That's a red flag waving so hard it's about to take flight. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. The waitress came by to refill our mugs. Jake nodded politely, then turned back to me. Look, man, he said gently. Whatever happens, I got your back. Always. I met his eyes and saw it. Not judgment, but that steady, unshakable loyalty he'd always carried. Thanks, I said, voice rough. Means more than you know. He nodded once. Just don't wait till you're standing at the altar to realize you're the only one who showed up. We sat in silence after that. Two men, one truth hanging in the air between them. Outside, the diner lights flickered, and somewhere deep in my gut, I felt the tremor of a decision not yet made, but coming. Madison's parents lived in a two-story colonial nestled just outside Prattville, with a backyard that always smelled like sweet tea and smoked hickory. String lights dangled between pine trees, casting a soft glow over folding tables, lawn chairs, and a grill already working overtime. You could hear someone's cousin tuning a guitar in the corner, and the screen door never stopped swinging. But there was one thing missing. Madison. I stood near the grill with a paper plate in one hand, ribs piled high, trying to look relaxed while dodging the glances. Every new car pulling up sparked a flicker of hope that she'd finally shown, only for it to be another aunt or college roommate, waving brightly and calling my name like everything was perfect. Carter. Someone shouted across the yard. Where's the bride-to-be? I forced a smile. Running late, I think. I didn't add that I hadn't heard from her since noon, or that her phone had gone straight to voicemail since 4. Madison's dad clapped me on the back as he passed with a tray of baked beans. Women, huh? He said with a chuckle. Probably lost track of time getting her nails done. I laughed lightly, nodding, though it felt like a brick dropped in my stomach. I looked at my watch for the 4th time in 5 minutes. I moved to a quiet corner near the drinks cooler, trying to catch my breath. My smile had started to hurt, and my neck felt tight from pretending to be the steady one. That's when I saw her, Cassidy. She stepped up beside me, barefoot on the grass, holding a lemonade in both hands. Her brown hair was pulled into a loose braid, and she wore this soft, knowing expression like she'd already seen the end of the story I was trying to avoid. Hey, she said gently. Hey, Cass. She glanced around, then back at me. Still no sign. I shook my head. No text. Nothing. She nodded once, taking a sip. You okay? I let out a breath. Define okay. Her lips curled in something close to a sad smile. You're doing a good job pretending. I huffed. That obvious? Only to people who pay attention. I looked at her then. Really looked. And for a second, the mask slipped. She does this thing, I said quietly, where she disappears, but not physically. Just emotionally checks out. And I keep waiting for her to come back. Cassidy's gaze didn't waver. You shouldn't have to wait for someone to come back to you. I looked down at my ribs. You're the only one being honest with me. Maybe I'm the only one who's not afraid of the truth, she said, her voice even. Everyone else wants the wedding to happen so badly, they'll ignore what's right in front of them. I nodded slowly. Including me. She hesitated, then added, you don't have to go through with it just because people expect you to. I met her eyes. There was something in them. Clarity, sadness, maybe even a warning. I keep thinking once the wedding's done, she'll settle. That it'll click. And if she doesn't? Cassidy asked. I had no answer for that. Carter, she said gently, you're a good man. I've watched you love her in ways she doesn't even see. And I don't think she knows what she's about to lose. Her words landed heavy. Not sharp, just true. I rubbed the back of my neck. Thanks, Cass. Really? She nodded and lightly touched my arm. I'll be around if you need to disappear for a minute. And with that, she drifted back into the crowd. I stood there a while longer, ribs untouched, surrounded by warm food, friendly faces, and the thick, gnawing silence of being alone in plain sight. It was close to midnight when the front door finally opened, hinges creaking loud enough to snap my head up from the couch. Madison stepped inside like she'd just returned from a victory lap. heels in her hand, hair loose, cheeks flushed, the room filling instantly with wine and sweet perfume that didn't belong to our house. "You serious right now?" I said, standing up. "You didn't answer a single call." She kicked the door shut with her foot and shrugged. "My phone died." "For 6 hours?" She dropped her purse on the chair. "Carter, relax." I moved closer, keeping my voice steady. "Where were you?" She rolled her eyes and wandered toward the kitchen. "I told you, just chilling with the girls." "Which girls?" I asked. "Because Cassidy was at the barbecue the whole time. So was your cousin. And nobody saw you." She laughed softly, like I'd just told a joke. "Why are you interrogating me?" "Because you didn't show up to your own pre-wedding barbecue," I said. "Because your family kept asking where you were. Because I stood there like an idiot covering for you." She turned, arms crossed now. "You're being dramatic." "No," I replied. "I'm being disrespected." Her smile tightened. "Oh my God, here we go." I took a breath. "You don't get to disappear, ignore me, embarrass me in front of your family, and then walk in here like nothing happened." She tilted her head, studying me. "You're acting insecure." I let out a short laugh. "This isn't insecurity. This is basic respect." She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was calming a child. "You need to stop overthinking everything. I need you to start caring." I shot back. Her expression hardened for a split second, then smoothed over into something practiced. "Carter," she said slowly, "it'll all be better after we're married." The words landed wrong. Too rehearsed. Too convenient. I stared at her. "You really believe that, don't you?" She sighed. "Yes. I'm stressed. The wedding's a lot. Once it's over, I'll settle down." "So I just absorb all of this until then?" I asked. "I just accept being treated like an inconvenience." She shrugged again. "That's not what I said." "That's exactly what you said." She walked past me toward the hallway. "I'm tired. I don't want to fight." I followed her a step. "You don't want to fight because you don't want accountability." She stopped and turned sharply. "Why are you trying to ruin this?" "I'm trying to save it," I replied. She stared at me, then scoffed. "You're exhausting." That one cut deep. She headed toward the bedroom, tossing over her shoulder, "We'll talk tomorrow." I didn't follow. I stood there in the living room, lights low, her perfume still hanging in the air, replaying her words again and again. "After we're married." Not an apology, not a promise, just a delay. And for the first time, I understood it wasn't confusion on her face. It was control. The sun was barely up when I pulled into the florist's parking lot, the sky still bruised purple and gold. The bell over the door chimed as I stepped inside, the smell of lilies and roses washing over me like irony. The woman behind the counter smiled. "Morning. Picking up?" "No," I said quietly. "Canceling." She paused. "Excuse me." "Carter Hale," I added. "Wedding order. Saturday delivery." Her fingers stopped on the keyboard. "The magnolia bouquet?" "Yes." She looked up, concern flickering. "Is everything all right?" I nodded once. "It will be." She typed a few more keys. "Done." I stepped back into the morning air and exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for days. Then I sat in my truck and made the second call. "Bridal Boutique," a cheerful voice answered. "This is Carter Hale," I said. "I need to stop payment on an order." A pause. "Madison's gown?" "Yes." Silence stretched. "Okay," the woman finally said. "Payment has been halted." I hung up and stared through the windshield. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. 3 hours later, there was a knock on my door, sharp, frantic. I opened it to Madison standing there, eyes red, hair pulled back like she hadn't slept. "What did you do?" she demanded. I leaned against the doorframe. "You should come inside." She pushed past me, pacing. "The florist called. The boutique called. You embarrassed me." I closed the door slowly. "You embarrassed yourself." She spun around. "You're punishing me." "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself." Her voice cracked. "You don't mean this." "I do." She rushed toward me, grabbing my arm. "Carter, please. You're overreacting. I told you, it'll be better after." "Stop," I said calmly, pulling my arm free. "Don't say it." Her eyes filled fast. "You can't do this. My parents already paid deposits. People are flying in. You're ruining my life." I studied her face. The tears. The shaking hands. "Your life?" I asked softly. "You haven't once asked what this did to me." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I waited. I continued. "I defended you. I swallowed things that didn't sit right, because I thought commitment meant endurance. She sobbed now, voice breaking. I love you. I shook my head. No, you love security. That landed hard. She dropped onto the couch, crying into her hands. Please don't leave me. I stood there, feeling something steady settle in my chest. I'm not leaving, I said. Not yet. She looked up, hope flaring instantly. I met her gaze. One last chance. Her breath hitched. I'll change. I swear. I nodded slowly. You don't get another excuse. No disappearing. No deflection. No after we're married. She nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, okay. I stepped back. Because if this happens again, once, I'm done. She wiped her cheeks, nodding again. I understand. But as she hugged me, I stared past her shoulder, already knowing something she didn't. This wasn't forgiveness. It was a deadline. The house was quieter than usual. Not silent, but measured, intentional. Every movement Madison made felt like it had been pre-rehearsed. Her voice had a softness it never carried before, and every, I love you, was delivered like a line she couldn't afford to mess up. On Monday, she left sticky notes on the fridge. Have a great day, future husband. Tuesday, she texted me around lunchtime. Just thinking about you. Can't wait for Saturday. I replied with a smiley face. Nothing more. By Thursday, she was cooking dinner. Real meals. Something with lemon and capers one night. Then lasagna from scratch. I watched her move around the kitchen like nothing had happened, laughing at her own jokes, pouring wine for me, touching my shoulder gently in passing. On the outside, we looked fine. That was the strange part. Want to try that new place in Montgomery this weekend? She asked one night, curled up beside me on the couch. Sure, I said. She glanced over. You okay? Yeah. She smiled, then rested her head against my chest. I let her. But something inside me was awake now. Like a light I hadn't switched on in years. I didn't feel angry, just alert. Watching her, not with suspicion, but with clarity. Everything she did now lived under a quiet microscope I never meant to hold. We sat through dinners at candlelit restaurants, clinked glasses with other couples at double dates, posed for smiling selfies in front of sunsets. But I noticed the patterns. The new rhythm she'd adopted. Like she was playing the role of Madison, the good fiancé, and hoping I wouldn't notice the rewrite. She was on her best behavior. I never told her I was watching to see how long she'd hold it. One night, late, I sat in the living room while she slept upstairs. The lights were dim. Just the ticking of the wall clock and the soft hum of the AC filled the space. I opened my phone and tapped on Jake's name. Typed. You were right. Should have listened. Then I stared at it for a while. Jake had called once that week. I let it ring out. No voicemail. He was giving me space, like a friend does when you're walking a tightrope and they don't want to shout you off balance. I started to type more. It's like she's wearing a costume now, and I'm supposed to pretend it's who she's always been. I sat back, thumb hovering over send. But after a long pause, I hit delete. Because I wasn't ready for Jake to know I hadn't made a final call yet. I wasn't even sure I wanted someone to echo my own doubts back to me. Not when Madison was finally trying. Not when everything was quiet. Not when I was waiting. That night, I climbed into bed beside her. She murmured something sleepy and reached for my hand. I gave it, but I didn't squeeze back. It was almost midnight. The windows rattled with a soft wind rolling off the fields, and the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling absently through my phone, still dressed from dinner, but with no energy left to undress. Tomorrow was supposed to be the day, our wedding day. The culmination of every RSVP, every floral deposit, every strained conversation with her mother about table linens. The house had been still since early evening. Madison had left for her bachelorette party around 7, shouting something over her shoulder about not waiting up. I hadn't planned to. But then came the crash. A sharp, sudden thud from the front entryway. I was down the stairs before I could even grab my phone, heart pounding, already bracing for what I knew deep down wasn't going to be good. She was half slumped against the wall by the time I reached the hall. Hair tangled, one heel missing, the other barely hanging on her foot. A dark smudge marked her cheek, and beneath her left eye, something swollen and red had already begun to bloom. Madison. She looked up, dazed but smiling like it was all part of some joke only she knew. Oh hey, baby, she slurred, trying to stand upright, then sinking back to the floor with a wince. I crouched beside her, instinct overriding everything else. What happened? She waved me off with a lazy hand. Tripped while dancing. Floor was slippery. I stared at her, the story as hollow as the look behind her glassy eyes. You tripped and hit your face? Yup, she said, popping the pea like it was a party trick. Cassidy said the same thing. I'm fine. But she wasn't. Her dress strap was twisted, one side of her makeup smudged completely off, mascara running uneven tracks down her cheek. The bruise under her eye wasn't tiny. It was the kind you don't get from a simple stumble. I helped her up slowly, letting her lean against me as we made our way to the couch. She collapsed onto it with a sigh, giggling again. You should have come, she murmured, voice fading. Was wild. Jess's husband. He was, never mind. I froze. Jess's husband? But her eyes were already closing. Nothing, she muttered. Forget it. Madison. She shifted, already drifting off. Just dancing. People were being dumb. I'm fine. I stood there for a long moment, staring down at her. The blanket slipped off the edge of the couch. I picked it up, tossed it gently over her shoulders. Then I sat across from her, hands steepled in front of my face. The bruise. The slur. The sudden switch in tone when she mentioned someone's husband. It didn't add up. But I didn't press. Not tonight. Not now. I watched her breathe. Watched the way her body sagged into the cushions like she hadn't felt safe relaxing in days. Or maybe hadn't cared to. And still, in the center of my chest, something sank low and slow like a stone hitting deep water. Not rage. Not panic. Just dread. The kind that didn't shout. The kind that whispered, you already know. While we're here, please press like and let me know you're with me. The church was quiet that morning, but not in a peaceful way. More like the stillness before a storm. Sunlight slanted through the stained glass windows in quiet beams, dust drifting like suspended time. I stood in the groomsmen's dressing room, straightening my cufflinks, eyes fixed on the mirror, watching a man who no longer knew if the suit he wore still meant something. I hadn't seen Madison since the couch. I'd been up before dawn, pacing my hallway, then my driveway, then this room. My hands hadn't stopped shaking until I pressed them flat against the sink and stared myself back into control. A soft knock tapped at the door. I turned as Cassidy stepped inside, slowly, cautiously. Her hair was curled, her makeup light. She looked more like someone attending a funeral than a wedding. Carter, she said quietly. I need to show you something. My chest tightened. Is it Madison? She nodded, then closed the door gently behind her. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. I wasn't going to, she said, voice tight. But I can't stay quiet anymore. You deserve the truth, all of it. I didn't speak. I just nodded once. She opened her camera roll, scrolled for a second, then turned the screen toward me. It was a video. Dark, shaky, loud music booming in the background. A crowded room. Girls in dresses with blinking tiaras, laughing and swaying. And there, right in the middle of the chaos, Madison, pressed against a man, kissing him. Not a quick peck. Not a joke. A full, eyes closed, two-hand on his shoulders kiss. The man's face became clear for just a second. Jess's husband. I remembered him from the barbecue. Jason, I think. He'd made some joke about the open bar. The video kept playing. A woman's voice shouted. Glass breaking. The screen shook violently. A fight broke out, people yelling. Cassidy pulling the camera away in a panic. Cassidy stopped it there and lowered the phone. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stared at the floor for a long time. She whispered. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. But after last night, after seeing your face while you stood alone in our backyard, she swallowed. I couldn't lie to you anymore. I nodded once. The pressure in my chest felt like it might cave in, but somehow, I kept my voice level. Thank you. Cassidy blinked, surprised. That's it. No, I said quietly. I walked to the window and looked out over the parking lot. Guests were arriving. Ties being fixed. Children spinning in their dress shoes. None of them knew the ceremony was already over. I turned back to her. Cass. Yeah. I held her gaze. Let's go on a honeymoon instead. Just us, you in? Her eyes searched mine for a second. Then, without even blinking, she nodded. I'm in. No drama. No hesitation. Just the only real answer I'd heard in weeks. I smiled, small, tired, real. All right then, I said. Let's get out of here. By the time the waves came into view, I had already forgotten the sound of stained glass silence. The beachfront resort wasn't flashy, just soft white walls and sun-warmed balconies, nestled between dunes and ocean air. Cassidy and I had barely said a word on the drive. No music, no awkward small talk. Just a quiet agreement carried in glances and deep breaths. The ocean greeted us with open arms. It didn't ask questions. I checked in under my name. One room. King bed. The receptionist smiled like any other afternoon check-in. She didn't know, or maybe didn't care, that I was supposed to be at a wedding right then. Cassidy had brought nothing but her overnight bag. She stepped out onto the balcony first, letting the wind whip through her hair. I watched her for a moment. This girl who saw through everything, who stood beside me without asking for anything in return. Then my phone rang. I already knew who it was before I picked it up. I answered. Carter. Madison's voice hit fast, rattled, furious, disoriented. Where are you? People are waiting. My mom's freaking out. Are you on your way? I didn't move from the balcony door. No, I said flatly. Silence. No, she echoed. What do you mean no? What's happening? Where are you? I stepped out onto the balcony, letting the ocean breeze wrap around me like armor. Cassidy stood a few feet away, barefoot, hugging her arms to her chest, eyes scanning the horizon. I'm on my honeymoon, I said. Another silence, heavier this time. Then, with who? I looked out at the waves. With your sister. Her breath caught. I heard it clear. You're lying, she whispered. I'm not. Carter, what are you talking about? Her voice cracked. You just left? Without saying anything? You can't do this. I didn't leave, I said. You did. Every time you looked me in the eye and lied, you walked a little further away. That video, she gasped. That was stupid. It was a mistake. I was drunk. I didn't even know what I was doing. I let that sit in the air for a moment. Then you should have sobered up before you kissed someone else. You're blowing this out of proportion, she cried. We were supposed to get married. You don't just disappear and replace me like I didn't matter. You mattered, I said. And then you didn't. She started to say something, but I cut in before she could spin another excuse. There won't be a second chance, Madison. She fell quiet. This isn't about revenge, I added. It's about peace. And I found at the moment I stopped waiting for you to love me the way I loved you. You're making a mistake, she said. It sounded more like a threat than a plea. I looked over at Cassidy, who met my gaze with nothing but honesty in her eyes. No, I said calmly. For the first time, I'm not. I ended the call. And just like that, the past stopped ringing. The wheels of the plane screeched softly against the tarmac as we touched down, the small-town airport coming into view. Just one terminal, 2 gates, and a red-white water tower that had welcomed me home since I was old enough to ride shotgun. Cassidy and I hadn't talked much during the flight. There wasn't tension, just comfort. A quiet understanding between two people who had watched something collapse and decided, without drama, not to be buried underneath it. As we walked into the terminal, I noticed how everything looked exactly the same as it did a week ago. The chipped linoleum tiles, the vending machines humming against the wall, the old man sweeping near the doors like he always did. But something inside me had changed so deeply, it felt like I was seeing it all for the first time. The air conditioning hit us as we stepped off the jet bridge. Cassidy shivered a little and pulled her denim jacket tighter around her. I held her carry-on while she stretched her arms, looking around with a slow exhale like the weight was finally off her chest. You sure it's okay we came back? She asked lightly. I glanced over. We never left anything behind worth staying for. She smiled faintly, then walked beside me toward baggage claim. The belt was still empty. A group of older women wearing church choir t-shirts chatted off to the side, and a little boy chased his reflection in the polished floor. We stood in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. I turned to her, watching the way she quietly scanned the room, thoughtful but not fragile. There was something about her, always had been, that cut through noise. I know I said this before. I began, but thank you for helping me see the truth. Cassidy looked up at me, her expression warm but steady. I didn't do much, she said. You did enough, I replied. You didn't try to fix it. You didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. You just stood there while everything fell apart. And you told the truth. She gave a small nod. I just hated watching you give your whole self to someone who didn't see it. That hit deeper than I expected. I used to think love was supposed to be earned, I admitted. Like, if I just stayed patient enough, loyal enough, forgiving enough, Eventually she'd meet me in the middle. Cassidy's voice was soft, but she never did. I shook my head. No. She was always just out of reach. And I kept chasing the version of her I wanted to believe in. Cassidy stepped a little closer. The version of you was always real, Carter. You didn't need to earn love. You were love. That quiet truth landed like a calm wave. Not painful, just clarifying. My duffel bag finally appeared on the carousel, turning the corner slowly like it was taking its time too. I grabbed it and slung it over my shoulder. You ever think about how weddings are supposed to be the start of something? I asked. Yeah, she said. I think mine was the end. Cassidy smiled. Then maybe this is where something better begins. There was no awkwardness in the way we looked at each other. No confusion. No guessing games. Just peace. As we stepped outside, the Alabama sun hit our skin like a long-awaited truth. Warm, honest, unforgiving in the best possible way. Cassidy squinted at the sky, then turned to me. So what now? I exhaled and adjusted the strap on my shoulder. I don't know, but wherever I'm going next, I'm not going alone. She didn't need to answer. She just nodded once. And together, we walked forward into the sunlight. No plan, no script, just two people finally free from the weight of pretending. The bell over the door gave its usual chime as I stepped back into Wheeler's diner. Same cracked leather booths. Same smell of fried eggs and burnt coffee. Same waitress, Pam, giving me a nod like I hadn't just skipped my own wedding. Jake was already there, sitting in our usual booth by the window, sipping coffee like it was any other Thursday. He looked up, squinted, and grinned. Well, look who survived. I slid into the booth across from him, dropping my phone on the table and exhaling. Barely. Where have you been? Nobody's heard from you since. He stopped, leaned in with mock seriousness. You skipped town with the bride's sister. I raised a brow. Is that what people are saying? He smirked. Among other things. Pam came by and refilled his mug, gave me a look like she wanted to ask something, but thought better of it. I nodded politely, ordered coffee, then turned back to Jake. I owe you an apology, I said. Jake leaned back. You don't. I do, I insisted. You told me the truth. You told me to walk away. I fought you on it. He shrugged. You were in it. You loved her. I didn't expect you to listen. Well, I should have, I said. Would have saved me from nearly saying vows to someone who couldn't even respect my time, let alone my heart. Jake gave a low whistle. So what happened, really? I paused, then smiled. Let's just say Cassidy had the guts to show me what I refused to see. His brow lifted. She told you. She showed me a video. Night of the bachelorette party. Madison was kissing Jess's husband. Jake's mouth dropped open. You serious? I nodded. Dead serious. He let out a stunned laugh. Man, that explains everything. What do you mean? Jake took a sip of his coffee, then leaned in. You missed a show? Whole wedding turned into a circus. I raised an eyebrow. Do tell. Well, Jake started, grinning like he'd been waiting to spill this. Guests showed up to the church, and you weren't there. First 10 minutes. People thought you were just running late. Then the clock kept ticking. And ticking. Then the whispers started. Let me guess. Madison tried to cover? Oh, she tried. But Cassidy was gone, too. And someone said they saw you two leave town that morning. I shook my head. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Well, her mom was crying. Her dad was red in the face yelling about humiliation and how dare he. One of the groomsmen asked if there'd still be food. And Madison? What did she do? She collapsed. Full-on meltdown. Screaming at her sister over voicemail, blaming her parents, blaming the planner. At one point, she yelled, I was stressed, like that explained everything. I stared down at my coffee. I believed that. She always thought pressure justified betrayal. Jake was quiet for a second, then said, So you good? I nodded. Yeah, for the first time in a long while. He leaned forward. You really left all that behind? Not just the wedding, I said. The chasing. The hoping she'd become someone else. Jake raised his mug. To letting go. I raised mine in return. To seeing things clearly. We clinked. Then I leaned back, gaze steady. You were right, Jake. About what? Respect doesn't magically appear after a signature. Jake grinned. No, it doesn't. But peace? That shows up the second you stop trying to earn something that should have been given freely. I looked out the diner window, watching the slow drift of clouds across the pale morning sky. And I felt it. Not the sting of what I'd lost, but the steady calm of knowing I didn't lose anything worth keeping. And that was the end of my story. Cassidy could have stayed quiet like everyone else, but instead, she showed me the truth, knowing it might tear her own family apart. If you were in her shoes, would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit you somewhere real, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more.